Okay, so we're here in week 1 of the Master's Programs in Digital Humanities, and I'm looking at our Communities of Practice courses, which look at online communities, knowledge communities, building knowledge in online communities. Now, there's 2 ways to move into creating a digital online knowledge community. It's kind of like learning swimming. One way is to throw people into the deep end with really heavy reading and see who sinks and who swims. That's how I was taught to swim. I didn't like that. I'm a shallow end kind of person. So what I have put up in Blackboard for the first week's discussions, in the content, course info, first folder for the first week, which I've called tribes. And I've called it tribes because there's 2 things that I'm particularly interested in. There's 3 others that we may get to later. But the first thing there is Seth Godin's TED Talk on the Tribes We Lead, which is about online communities. It's a classic exposition of the basics of online communities. It's a little dated now, but a lot of what it has to say is still good. The second piece is a piece about the Visible Knowledge Project. It's quite a recent summary of the project. The Visible Knowledge Project was an exploration of those things that academics tend to take for granted when we're trying to teach people how to do things. So we give people a reading list and we say go and read those things. We don't really pay a lot of attention to how well people can read things, or if they're actually getting out of the readings what we want them to get out of the readings. We're very bad for that. And we hand out a list of essay titles and we presume people can write the titles and make the arguments. And the Visible Knowledge Project basically said, hang on a minute. Maybe we should look a little bit more carefully at making explicit all the various stages in locating and processing knowledge from initial question to finished essay, podcast, documentary, whatever. And that's very important for the digital world because, of course, one of the things we know about computers is that you really have to be quite explicit about the steps and the stages in your process. So the visible knowledge process is very important for managing knowledge and digital knowledge communities. So I've put those 2 things up there. And what I want people to do is look at the Seth Godin video and read the Visible Knowledge Project outline and get a reaction to it. So the third item is a link to the discussion forum where we will have our knowledge community. You have to get a couple of clicks down before you actually get to the forum part. But in that, I've basically summarized some of what I've said about the TED Talk and the Visible Knowledge Project. And what I've asked people to do is to pick out the things that they find commonplace now from Seth Godin's TED Talk and identify the things that you still find noteworthy or remarkable. And that will allow me to get a feel, and for us as a group to get a feel for how much we know and how comfortable we are with online networking and communities and online communities. And similarly with the Visible Knowledge Project reading, I'd like you simply to respond to the idea of visible knowledge and where you feel maybe it was neglected in your own formal learning. And maybe, how differently you would approach learning based on this, or how learning might be different and handling knowledge might go better. And obviously some of you have a great deal of practical experience from outside formal learning, which you may be able to bring to bear on that. And if you do, then you bring it in there, because this is 2 things. One, I'm getting people used to the big ideas in the field. 2, this week I'm getting people comfortable with the idea of posting in the forums and responding to other people's posts. And there's a third which I've forgotten. But I know there was a third. So what I'd like people to do is view and read those and then post your reactions in the forum. Let's say we kick this off on Monday morning, so sometime Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, read these, get a post up on the forum. Don't worry about what it says. We're just getting a feel for where we all are and how comfortable we are in the water at the shallow end. And then Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, going into the weekend, reply to somebody else's post. It might be that you pick up an idea that you agree with, or something that you have a different experience of, or you might find 2 or 3 posts where you see a common thing that you can bring together, or something may remind you of something you hadn't thought of from outside that you can bring in, or you may see the next logical question that arises from some of the things that people have picked up. These are all ways in which we advance the discussion. So what I'm doing here is getting people comfortable with this idea and getting us used to talking to one another in the forums, and also establishing some rough map of where we all are in relation to these and how our own life experiences relates to them and where we stand and what our starting point is. Because a very important part of building a knowledge community is getting to know the other people in it and building a basis of, of trust and respect, and building a comfortable discussion space. So that's a reason for starting off in the comfortable shallow end of the pool and working along on this. So then we'll see how that works out, and hopefully that'll all